sort of working. There we go.
You see me starting like slouching right to the like.
Just go, ah!
Oh, I hit my head on the table as I'm trying to get back up.
That's what you do when you're preaching, you know. Understand? You look around, you see somebody, and then it's just like, I'm going to get really intense right now and see if it wakes them up.
All right, well, you better start doing a good job of that, because I know there's a particular person in one of the back rows that's been having a hard time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that there's much to do about it sometimes. So, anyway, here we go. Oh, unless you want to add to the pandemonium here.
I shouldn't. We'll be going on the... Yeah.
Hey, y'all, Pastor Ramel here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is sweeter. Here with Scott Lewis on the verge of a old man coma. We're going to need your help to keep him awake. Supposedly. He's officially retired-ish, maybe?
I'm saying I'm semi-retired.
Semi-retired, okay.
I'm still getting paid for the moment, so.
But he is here today, earlier in the day. It's 1:50 Central here, and that's why. I got some stuff going on tonight. You see the shirt. This is the summer camp shirt, the new summer camp shirt. The lighting is here is terrible. So it's actually like a deep teal kind of color. I don't know what the heck it looks like on there. But that's why we got open house tonight, so I can't do this tonight. He's free. So here we are. We want to keep going through Matthew 13 here. The parables that we've been looking at of Jesus. And we are taking a look at Matthew 13, 44 through 46. And it's an interesting parable, and I wanted Scott to give me his opinion first. I'll read it, and then, fly by the seat of our pants, just what comes to mind here. So Jesus is still speaking here. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought it. So, your initial reaction to that, sir? Assuming you're not asleep yet for your retirement afternoon siesta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my initial reaction was, what? He found something, and then he's going to bury it and run away to get, sell everything he has? Somebody else might come along and find it first, right? Or find it again. But, that didn't make any sense to anything, so
well,
I know that can't be right.
I think the idea is that he finds this thing in a field, and then he doesn't own the field.
Right.
So he just finds this thing, and he realizes that there is something special about this. People do this in all kinds of fields. Let's say you see a house, and it looks like hell. Like it just is awful, dilapidated, fixer-upper is maybe an understatement. And maybe it's in a particularly interesting location. Maybe you know something that's going to be happening nearby, or you're aware of, or you think it's a good likelihood that it's going to happen, even if it's not a done deal, or the neighborhood, or location. So you see this crummy-looking house in a great neighborhood, and you find out you can get it for like a quarter of the price that you think it would be worth if you fixed it up, and you go, man, how does nobody else see this? And, sometimes people do see it. They just don't have the resources to get it done, right? So you go and you sell all you have, you get this, and you quadruple your money, right? Or stocks, right? People study companies and they go, hey, this company it doesn't look like it's being valued for all these other things that it has coming. I see these key events happening. I think there's a good likelihood that something's going to happen with it. And even if it doesn't, there's like Warren Buffett gets them when they're depressed price-wise. It's already really cheap.
Mhm.
Shouldn't be this cheap. And then you just wait for everything to you wait for everybody else to discover what you discovered, sort of thing. Although it does sort of seem like, what were you doing in someone else's field? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It's just, that doesn't being in a field. I mean, that just brings me back to when we were kids and we were all over the place. Whose field, whatever, we were just roaming around, right? So that's what I pictured. This guy just kind of roaming around in a rural area, finding this treasure. But I guess the interesting thing is that it's that phrase, kingdom of heaven, again, is like a treasure hidden in a field. And so I think we talked like last time about what does it mean? What does the kingdom of heaven mean in that terminology or in that, parable?
Well, it's not, we kind of talked about this last time, I think, right? Like the King of Heaven's not really a place. I mean, it's almost like something within a place within a place, if anything, right? Like it's something that already exists in this other space, this field. It's more like the rule and reign of God. It's more about the activity of God. There's a book I read I don't know how many years ago. We actually read it when I first got here with some of the leaders, the elders, the board. Kingdom Come by Reggie McNeil. And I think he says to try and keep it simple, and it's not sufficient in every way. It's not a full, in-depth theological explanation, but I think he defined it as something like life as God intends it. So the kingdom, when you say, Lord, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You want God's ways and God's intention for life in the universe. You want those things to take place here. You want that stuff to be at work here and now, right? On earth as it is in heaven. So it's strange to like discover this in a field. It's not really something like that, right? And so when any of these parables, you can't push the details too far, or at least not all the details. Like what's the point of the parable? The point is the discovery, the willingness to give up everything to get it, right? I think does that make sense? Like the fact that it's a field, the fact that it's, the kingdom of heaven, and how do you find it in a field? Like we don't want to press those things too much. I don't think that's the point. But what would you say is the point of the whole discovery and the giving up of everything and the purchasing and all that kind of stuff with?
Well, it was, and maybe this is not something you can press as well, but the fact that he kind of, in a way, stumbles upon it.
Stumbles upon it? Yeah, well, that's kind of like what we talked about last time. Like, it's not, kingdoms...
But it was easy to recognize once he saw it.
Once he saw it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he didn't, it's maybe not necessarily looking for like the video you sent me earlier when the lady moved to Jesus Street. And it's like that's not what she was looking for when she moved there.
And then boom, here it is, sort of unexpected. Yeah, and it's not like this big, powerful empire that imposes itself on everybody, right? It
wasn't a castle or a fortress in a field, right? It
wasn't like, oh, there it is. It was like, again, like last time, thinking small in a sense that here's, what was it? A little seed, a mustard seed, right? That when it's just a little tiny thing, and then you sow it in the seed, in the soil, in the garden, and then all of a sudden it's the greatest of garden plants, right? It's that sort of thing, sort of unsuspecting, also not just unexpected, but like you wouldn't. This isn't where you would expect something like that. So yeah, there's that too, but like the main point, what is the main point about? Like, why does this? What is it? What is it trying to tell us about this guy selling everything he has to go have this thing, to buy the field so he can have it?
Touch of wood. He immediately knew that it was of great value, so it was worth giving up whatever he had to have it.
So then we should give up everything we can to have the kingdom of heaven.
That's kind of what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is sort of what it is on the surface. And it's the same thing with the next one, the pearl, right? King of Heaven's like a merchant in search of fine pearls. He finds one of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. That better be one special pearl.
Yeah, really? That'd be tough to sell
Right.
everything you have to buy a pearl.
But I think we get sucked in. We often, when we read the Bible, we see ourselves before we see Jesus. And so that's kind of what I was getting at with like, what's your typical thing? Let's see us here. If we see us here, like a human, a self-centered human, we go, oh, so the kingdom of heaven is something I have to give up everything for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not wrong.
Right.
I mean, Jesus does say to at least several people throughout, and certainly even if he doesn't command it, like they leave their nets and they follow him. They do give up everything. He just says, follow me, and then they end up giving up everything. And then there's the rich young ruler who he says, go sell all you have and you'll have treasure in heaven. You know, he's asking, what must I do? Go sell all you have. Come follow me. And he was disappointed because he had great wealth, right? And he didn't want to give it up. So it's not that that's not true, but that you couldn't actually buy the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
I mean, you could buy
Access to it.
all kinds of other kingdoms,
Right.
and people do. I mean, we've been living through an era now where people are, uncovering some things that, wow, money does seem to get people pretty far and gets an awful lot of influence and leverage. And so it's not that's not maybe a thing in the earthly sense, but you can't buy this. This isn't something to buy. It's something that you have to be willing to basically die for. I mean, that's what the early Christians, they end up dying and everything. But is there even an amount that you could use to buy it? Like, isn't it really priceless,
Mm-hmm.
the kingdom of heaven? Like, it's beyond measuring the value. So we don't have enough to actually buy it in the first place. We don't have enough to get it. And what are we using to get it? I mean, God owns everything. He literally created everything. Like, money is basically paper. And he created that. He could just poof. Oh, yeah, here's some money. You want some money? Boop. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you want some gold? Boop. There it is. Right? Like, it's nothing to him. He doesn't need that. He wants us. He wants us to acknowledge him and obey him and all these other guys. Like, give our hearts to him, which is, kind of poo-pooed idea among Lutherans, but that he wants to rule in our hearts. And because he knows that his ways, are way better for us and for the world and for everything. But ultimately, our hearts aren't really worth much. I think it's Jeremiah 17, the heart is deceitful and wicked above all things. It's not really something that should purchase us anything. other than the fact that he loves us and he wants us. And so that's an incentive, so to speak, for him. But what about Jesus? If we look at this from a different perspective, flip it around and say, okay, forget about us. This isn't about us. This isn't about us doing something. This isn't about, what if it's about Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
So then what do you think? What do you see? What do you...
Yeah, it's what he did, right? So he found us, or well, we were created by him, but when he came to earth, he found us and thought we were of enough value that or even before that, I guess, he gave up everything that he had in heaven, traded it in and came down here. So, yeah. Trying to figure out how that works with the kingdom of heaven, but I guess he's seeing us as being the connection that makes the kingdom of heaven, something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that it's really like
that
this is how valuable the kingdom of heaven is, as much as it is this is how it works in the kingdom of heaven. And if you think about it, that's really what we've been hearing throughout all of this stuff. This is how it works in the kingdom of heaven. A sower goes out to sow seed and he just throws it everywhere, and you go, wait, what? That's how it works? That doesn't make any sense. And then you get the weeds in the wheat, and it's like, oh, the kingdom of heaven is maybe compared to a man who sowed good seed in the field and then found this enemy planted wheat in the midst of the weeds and in the midst of the wheat. So this is sort of how it works. It's not like the kingdom of heaven is a thing. It's a way of acting and behaving in the world. It's the rule and reign of God. It's what life would look like if it was fully the way God originally intended it to look. All right, so it's activity more than anything else.
Yeah, it's not the kingdom of heaven equals treasure hidden in a field, right? It's kingdom of heaven is treasure hidden in a field which a man found and covered up and then went and sold it. So it's all of that. The kingdom of heaven is all of that. Compared to all of that is that treasure that a man finds and the action part, right?
Yeah. So it's like I had somebody come up to me at a swim awards party they had a couple weeks ago. And he's like, "Oh, you're Icelandic." Yeah, I was in Iceland once, and he starts to describe to me like, "Oh man, they don't have personal space there. Which is actually true. Like, and I think that's true of a lot of Europe, where people are much like, this is a normal amount of space here, but like in Iceland, you could have a room half this size with just this table, and we're like this far apart, and that's comfortable." And they come here and they're like, "Oh, you could fit at least 15 people in this room." And we're like, "Whoa, like don't put more than 2 more people in here." I've had the full table here with filled with people at various points, and it does start to feel really tight. But that's just the way it is. Oh, and the other thing he talked about is like close talker, like Seinfeld, the close talker, right? It's like they talk really close. And then I tell him the story about like my uncle one time. It was when it finally dawned on me that although it felt normal to be there, like everything looks similar to the way it looks here. I mean, it is very different too when you go to Iceland. But, it wasn't like I was in, a village in Africa or China or, like it just looked and felt kind of normal. I knew these people, their family, their relatives, right? But my uncle walks past me and kind of like is in a doorway, or I'm walking through the doorway, but he's like in the doorway. I forget exactly how it happened, but he's like leaning up against one side of the doorway, and I'm walking through maybe. And he just looks down and he starts having this conversation with me. Like, and he's 6'4" or whatever it is. And he's just like looking down at me, but he's like this far away from my face. He's drinking a beer at the time, and he's just loud because he just is loud. And Icelanders can be loud. And that was what this guy was saying. It's like they get really close and they're just so loud. And it's like, yeah, actually, I guess they kind of are. Surprisingly so. They don't say a lot, but when they do start talking, man, are they? And you just see that the way that it works in the Kingdom of Iceland is just different. It's just not the same. It's similar and in some ways, and yet just completely different. And it sneaks up on you that, oh yeah, wow, I am in a foreign country. I'm an American, and I'm used to personal space and boundaries and like all this other stuff. And apparently they're not. So, I mean, I remember, I think it was either my grandfather's or my grandmother's funeral. They do like two separate things. They have sort of like the first with sort of like an open casket. They don't have like a funeral home experience where people come and it's like whoever's coming comes to this thing, and it's a short 15, 20, 30-minute service. Open casket, I believe, and you just say a few things, and it's like these little rooms. I think it was at a church meant for this very thing. And they have chairs. And the chairs, these people in Iceland are not small. I mean, they're not big in the way Americans can be big. But they're not small. I mean, they're giants. And these chairs, like I'm sitting, like this chair is like twice the size of that chair. And so you see all these chairs lined up, and you're like, wait a sec, how many people are in the family? And there's like exactly the right number of chairs for people. So that means we're all going to be sitting like this. And that doesn't work here. Those chairs better be spacious and
spread
out, or enough where like everybody gets to skip a seat. Kind of thing.
Right.
Or like, well, you sit next to your spouse, but not next to that person. You have a little gap. And it's like just respecting your space. Right.
Right.
That is not how it works in the Kingdom of Iceland. In the Kingdom of America, there's lots of space and everything. And that's not to say good or bad. That's just the way it is. Because there's all kinds of stuff that they come here and they're like.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the culture, because we have a big country.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's spread out, so we're used to that, and they're used to being on this little bitty island.
Well, we have,
so they have to pack in a little bit.
Yeah, and Iceland is a pretty big island. It's not all necessarily the best for residential real estate, but this is more true of the rest of Europe, where everything is really packed into small places. And so there's not a whole lot of space to expand. So they have very little space. We, on the other hand, have a ton of space.
Yeah.
You could give every person on the planet something like 5 acres apiece, and we could fit them all in the United States. Now, you don't necessarily want some of that land. You couldn't live on it. You couldn't build a house on it. You couldn't sustain yourself with farming or something on some of it, but you could, theoretically. There's enough space for it. On the other hand, they get 8 weeks of vacation
to get away from all of that.
Yeah, I guess. But they have all the time in the world. They are never in a hurry. In fact, I saw this again today on Instagram. There's these Iceland accounts that I follow occasionally, and one of it was put this thing out there with a phrase that's all over the place in Iceland. In fact, one lady in the comments said, "Oh, I went and visited Iceland, and then I got this tattooed on me, like on my arm or something. Þetta reddest," which is just whatever. It'll work out. Like, relax. It's okay. Now, it also means that sometimes
they haven't lived in America yet.
Well, yeah. Sometimes things just don't ever happen, like unless you make it happen, because everyone's saying, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine," and then all of a sudden it's like, "No, it's not fine." Like that. But that's sort of the attitude in Iceland, and it's, I think, very much a European thing. the siesta stuff we were kind of referencing before we both passed out for an afternoon nap. But they have all the time in the world. We don't have any time. We're rushing. Well, we are in Southeast Louisiana, so it's not quite the same.
Right.
We're like a separate country within the United States. But the rest of America, always in a rush, always something else going on, always somewhere to be. Which is better? Depends on why you're asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kingdom of Heaven, this is how it works. You discover something valuable like this, you put everything into it. This is Jesus. He comes, he gives up everything. He comes, discovers us. I mean, he knows we're there. It's not like he didn't know we were here. Discovers us, so to speak, and gives up everything that he has left at that point to die on a cross, to rise again, to save us from sin, Satan, and death. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Because we probably wouldn't do that. We're
No,
not
I'm
doing
already
that.
thinking how I could have bargained my way to keep a little bit to buy that.
Yeah. All right. How can I keep a little bit? I don't want to go all in on this.
That's right.
You know, hedging your bets, so to speak, which is wise. You don't necessarily go all in on certain things. You know, you do have to be wise and think things through a little bit. But man, if it's worth literally going completely all in on us in the kingdom of heaven, then isn't it worth it for us to go all in on the kingdom of heaven? Like, you can't get there. Like, why would you go all in on something? Why do we hedge our bets? Because we're like, I don't know, this person may not work out.
Mm-hmm.
Like a relationship, or this investment might not work out. It's going to fail me. It's not going to deliver, right? It's not going to sell itself for me, kind of thing. It's not going to sell all it has for me. Actually, a stock, you have zero rights to a liquidation. Only bondholders have, I mean, they all go first, which means there's nothing left for you by the time, so I guess technically maybe you do, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
It's not the way it works. Not the way it really works out.
Yeah. Your career doesn't, your government doesn't, your government's not going to sacrifice itself for you. They're going to ask you to sacrifice yourself for it.
Right.
Right. But so when you meet a king who doesn't just say, "Oh yeah, I got your back. I'm all in. I'll help you out. I'll do what I have to do to cover you." He doesn't just say it. He actually does it first, and then says, "Follow me." That's a pretty big deal, right?
Mm-hmm. It reminded me of what's that day? Abraham and bargaining with God to go to. How about if there's 50 people? How about if there's whatever? He says no. There's basically what was the guy? Was his name Lazarus? I forgot.
Lot,
right?
Yeah, Abraham.
Hell. So Lot, yeah, he goes. God already knew there was only Lot in his
Yep.
family,
Yep.
But anyway, but he sent him in. So
Oh, and
Abraham was willing to,
Yeah, and he got him out.
and he got him out.
He got him out before. Actually, you sent me a reel about that, didn't you? That biblical archaeology that essentially proves that there was something that happened to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep. Yeah. There's layers of sulfur in the soil or whatever. There's at a distinct point when you start digging, you hit this layer of sulfur that can only be caused by great temperatures and certain whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was the whole area. It wasn't like one little spot. It was like definitely something happened in that spot. There was like a burned spot, So anyway,
Yeah, archaeology pretty much universally backs up the Christian faith when you start to dig into it. Um, so I think the reason why we aren't willing to sell everything and buy it, not that we could buy it, right? But the reason why we don't go all in on the kingdom of heaven is I think we don't understand what's already been done. Like we're like, oh yeah, Jesus died for my sins. Okay, now I'm going to go watch the game. Like it, and in some sense, it's understandable because I do it too. It's like, what do? Like we have all day, every day, and there isn't always like you can't 100% of the time. I mean, even Jesus rested, he celebrated, he had fellowship and relaxation and fun, and he was at a wedding with 180 gallons of great wine, that he made. So there is like a sort of a rhythm to life still. And this is back to the Icelandic rhythm versus the American rhythm. And, maybe we're just doing too much. But I think it goes beyond that. I think we are actually not all that sold or committed to it, even when we do put our time and energy into it. And why not? I think because we don't see this parable with looking at Jesus as the focus of the parable. That's what inspires it. That's when you realize, wow, if someone like that, someone this important, this powerful, really loves me that much that they did this, well, then why would I ever give an ounce of energy or thought, time, money, anything to anything else? And so it's the gospel that ultimately motivates us. It's understanding the gospel. Romans 1:16, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for all who believe, right? It's the power of God. The gospel is the power of God, not, hey, you haven't sold everything yet. Let's get on it. That's one sure way to make people.
Yeah. I think I have a hard time just imagining, because this is where we live, and this is what we're used to, whether it's Iceland or the U.S. or Europe or wherever. And we do stuff all day, and then we go to bed, and we hopefully wake up the next day. When we wake up, it's all basically the same again.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to some places, like if you like the beach, you go to the beach. Say, wow, this is a wonderful place. It's like the ocean and the sunsets and all this kind of stuff. Or the mountains, or wherever it is that you like to go, and you can get a glimpse of something that's awesome, but you don't really live there. You're just kind of visiting, or you kind of get you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't think we have the imagination or the depth, like you said, of understanding of what it is that we're giving all of it. We would be giving. And that doesn't necessarily mean if we did, we would still do it. You know what I'm saying? I think some of that is because how many times in your life where you've been sort of all in on something and it didn't quite work out the way you thought it should have, Yeah. Like you said, a relationship with somebody or anything. You bought something, a car or something that you thought, I saved up all my work, you're in school and you're saving up all this money to buy this car, and then a week, 2 weeks later, needs a battery, or the tire goes flat, or the engine blows up, or whatever. Thinking, what in the world? I worked all that time for this, and I gave it all up, and here I am.
Well, that's where we develop into cranky, cynical old men.
Yeah.
Like, figures.
So that we gotta like kind of push that aside, I guess, some type of way.
Well, but
I guess, or is that not the way to do it?
That should feed our, like our faith. Like we say, yeah, well, yeah, I got my new car and apparently ran over 2 nails within, a couple of months, and I had to get new tires. That actually did happen to me. Brand new. The
There you
Tesla.
go.
The
Oh.
Tesla. The Tesla. I had to get
That
2
wasn't
new tires.
even way back when you were younger. That was recent.
That's recently. It was just like, figures. It figures, right? Just when you think it's so amazing. Like, it's just not the way it is ever with anything. But those moments should give us reason to say, yeah, but Jesus doesn't disappoint. Jesus isn't going to do that. He's not going to pull the rug out from under me. In fact, it's going to be far better than I realize. And
That's the hope, right?
that's what we're looking forward to. And you have to kind of tell yourself that on purpose. The Psalms, something like, I said to my soul, and you got to talk to yourself. And that's what praise is too. When you're praising God, you are, in a sense, it's like a pep talk for your soul too. Like you're directing it to God, but all of that works to help you be focused on the future hope that we have. The present hope and peace and joy that's available to us, but primarily through this future guarantee of what is to come. And, if we spend more time thinking about that and how great it's going to be, well, then we'd be more willing maybe to give something up.
Yeah, I guess that kind of goes across when he says that you have to, how does it go about being children? You have to be like a child to accept.
Yeah.
Because how many times as an adult have you been somewhere and done something and you want to say like, oh, this is great. I don't ever want to leave. Let's just keep partying or watching this game or, the church service. Let's just keep going. It's great. It's wonderful. But man, when you're a kid and they're having a great time and you go, oh, time to go home. They're like, so they understand it, or we understood it when we were that age better than we do as a jaded adult.
Yeah. Anyone who doesn't, enter the kingdom of God like a child can by no means enter it, or something like that. What is it? It's like Luke, I think, is how he kind of words it that way. Basically, you have to turn and become like this child. Maybe it's, I could spend. Okay, Mark 10. Let the children come to me. Do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of God. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child shall not enter it. I don't think he's saying we should come like
screaming,
kicking and
maniacs.
screaming, like, ah! It's faith. It's just sort of receiving this gift. It's, oh, okay, yeah. Oh, this is for me. Oh, yeah, great. Oh, sure, yeah. You love me? Yeah. Oh, I'm forgiven? Yeah, great. Okay, let's get on. Let's party. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. But yeah, kingdom of heaven, way more important, way more valuable, because we are the priceless treasure. You are the priceless treasure. And there's actually a song they're going to sing tonight. You probably saw the graduation. They're practicing today. There was one song we did in chapel. We've been doing it a couple of years now, at least. It's called Priceless Treasure. Mm-hmm. And I'm a priceless treasure. God knows me. God hears me. God is my comfort. I am his, and there's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever. I am a treasure. And there's all kinds of hand motion and everything. I'm a child of God. I know that I am loved. He hears me when I pray. He always makes a way. I am his, and he is mine. I am the prize he came to find, actually. So it's a reference directly to this, I think. And then back to the chorus. I'm a priceless treasure. God knows me. God hears me. God is my comfort. I'm his. There's nothing better. Forgiven and chosen forever, right? I mean, what better thing, place, person, kingdom is worth our all more than a kingdom that says that we're this priceless treasure. Right? It's a priceless treasure because we are the priceless treasure instead of it demanding something from us as, like, hey, you better show me how priceless I am to you. I don't think that's the message. It's you're a priceless treasure. And, you should probably be willing to buy this field. Anyway.
Jesus already bought it for me, so I don't have
exactly. With his blood, with his sacrifice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, anything else to add, or have we sufficiently exhausted our intellectual horsepower for the afternoon? Nap time, maybe, or?
I think we have squeezed it. There's it's like two paragraphs, although there's more, verses per se, but. Like I said, unless you're going to go back through and try to tie something very specifically, which, like you said, doesn't really apply. No, I think we've hit it. And it reminded me real quickly of someone I was watching, and they said they went to, they were at church or was going to join the church or whatever, and they said, read the pastor said, here, we're going to read the Bible in a year. So they did that, and when they got to the end, it was like, yeah, it was kind of interesting. A lot of stories about people doing things and stuff like that. And he said, but I still don't really get it. And then he said, okay, now want you to go back and read it again. But this time, instead of looking for yourself and all these stories, look for Jesus in these stories. So when you're saying that, that's like, that's kind of stuck in my head. So when, reading through this, sometimes I read it, I'm still stuck on trying to find myself in there. And sometimes it clicks and says, no, let's go back through and look for Jesus in here, and so, yeah, I got to remember that rule.
And
that idea.
Yeah. I just heard something, this week. I was listening to a sermon, Tim Keller sermon. I don't know how old it is. Maybe the 90s, maybe early 2000s, but he's referencing his kids watching Saturday morning cartoons, and I guess at some point it had to be referring at least to like the 80s or 90s because he's talking about Bible story cartoons on television.
Right.
They don't do that anymore that I'm aware of. But he said, oh, it sounded interesting, like Bible stories, and he's like, oh, wow. The Bible is, and they're going to define the Bible in one sentence. This is going to be good. People have been researching this for thousands of years and studying it, and, they can't do it in one sentence. Let me see how they do. And I said, the Bible is, about all these ancient stories about man's ancient search for God. And then he's like, and then in one sentence, they managed to fail about as miserably as you possibly can. Because he's like, anyone who reads the Bible knows, anyone who's thoroughly read it, studied it, meditated on it, knows that it's not about man's search for God, but that man is actually constantly running from God, avoiding God, ignoring God, and God's endless pursuit of us, which again is this story, these parables, that God is the one on the prodigal son. He runs out, the father runs out to the prodigal son when he sees him. And the two stories before that, the lamb and the lost coin, right? It's a pursuit. Matthew 28, it's go, right? And that's the Great Commission. That's our mission, to be on God's mission. Quick plug for the Open Arms book, Connecting People to Jesus. That's our mission because it's his mission. And actually, I remember a professor in seminary I think it was theology of mission. We had to take this class. And I think it was near the beginning, and he's asking a question. I don't know. It was a big class. It was the afternoon, like after lunch. We were all sort of like, he was a good guy, but he also had like a way of being very, like a calm voice, a soothing voice too. Like a deep, deep voice too, but he...
Bueller.
Yeah.
Bueller.
No, it was better
than that. Better than that. Guy.
But he had a way of just being comforting, you know. And he's asking this question, but I think it was mostly also because we just didn't get it, because he's saying, like, where does mission start in the Bible? And someone, the Great Commission. Where does the theology of mission start? And he's like, nope. And people are giving all these different answers. Oh, this? Nope. This? Nope, 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 nope. And then he reads Matthew, not Matthew, Genesis 3. He makes us read it or something like that. And we're all reading it and like, what? Nobody's getting this. Whatever it was. I don't know how he was trying to communicate it, how he was asking, or exactly the flow of how it all unfolded. But I just remember him like, where are you? Like, and he's like shouting, Genesis 3:9, I think it is, right? Where they're in the garden, the cool of the day, and now they're hiding, and God says, where are you? Right? He is in search of, he's in pursuit of, that is the God we have. It's our search for God is, a way of, making it, we're really searching for a God that fits our own understandings of God, or who we want God to be. That's what we're searching for. We're not actually searching for God, but in that search for the God that we want, if we're lucky, if we don't resist him, if we don't ignore him, we get smacked upside the head with the real God, who's way better than the ones that we'd like to be, that we'd like to have. So anyway, no. Yeah. He's searching for us. He's there. He's the one getting our attention. And actually, Tim Keller, he's told, not in that same sermon, but I know he said before that, when you're entering the kingdom, so to speak, when you're walking in through the door of faith, over the door, on the door, I think it's over the door, it says, ask, seek, knock, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And so you are the one, like, opening and going in, right? Like, you're searching for God. You come upon this door, right? But then when you walk through on the other side, if you look back over the door on the other side, from the inside, you see, you didn't choose me, I chose you. And so it's this dual, both and kind of weird tension that we have to live in. But God gets the credit in the end. We can't take credit for any of this.
Amen.
All right, nap time. Great to be with you, y'all. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And don't forget about these wonderful publications, Open Arms, Connecting People to Jesus, The Tales of Nola's Icelandic Adventure, Nobody's Nola.
And a mysterious new book coming soon.
Oh, coming soon. Yeah, I got to pay closer attention to all the stuff flying through my messages. Make sure it gets done. So, great to be with you. The Lord is chasing after you. He loves you. He sold everything to make sure that he could have you, his most priceless treasure, with him forever. So don't forget it.